Competitive multiplayer games are always changing. The characters and abilities that were reigning supreme for months will often find themselves at the opposite end of the spectrum and vice versa. Today, we're going to look at the Conqueror and the changes that were made to him in patch version 1.05. Just like the Conqueror's moveset, the list of changes he received are very short. This means every change that gets made to him has a huge effect. The first change to his full block stance makes it so that it can no longer be toggled immediately after getting hit with a bashing ability or kick to mitigate combos that are normally guaranteed, namely the Warden's shoulder bash to light attack or the Nobushi's kick to light attack. Being perfectly honest, I didn't know that was the thing he could do, so I'm a little sad that I missed out. The second change removed the top guard from his shield bash riposte and mix-up, making the Conqueror vulnerable from attacks on all sides while trying to send out his bash. These changes were designed to make the Conqueror more vulnerable, and they succeeded. The question now, is he too vulnerable? When you consider the Conqueror's ideal playstyle revolves around shield bashing and using a guaranteed light attack follow-up until your opponent dies of old age, then yes, he's too vulnerable. For anyone that isn't asleep at the keyboard or controller, the Conqueror's bashes are punishable by a light attack from any direction or a dodge and guard break. And if the Conqueror is insistent on using the same move repeatedly, he'll be dead in no time. But what if he does things that are less ideal? Is he still too vulnerable? Let's watch some duels and find out. The changes that were made to the Conqueror were big and small at the same time. They affect the most optimal way to play the character, but overall his kit is still very powerful. Now he's got more of a reason to use it. The superior block property on the Conqueror's heavy attacks are severely punishing this Peacekeeper. At the same time, using superior block heavy attacks more often makes him feel like a heavy hitter, which is what he's supposed to be. By making the Conqueror's shield bash unsafe, it incentivizes use of other moves in his kit. But this brings up another problem. By being encouraged to use different parts of the Conqueror's arsenal, you start to see more of the character's weaknesses. His inability to feint makes him incredibly vulnerable when going for parries. This was always the case, but now that it feels uncomfortable to whittle people down with shield bashes and light attacks, you might try to land parries more often, and you might get fucked up because of it. I got tricked by the same thing 3 times in a row. Feels bad. Now that we've seen the implications of these changes, we're going to look at them in a full match, a 1 versus 1 against a Warden, one of the most powerful characters in For Honor. It's interesting, man. These changes, they make the Conqueror significantly weaker, but at the same time, they make him a more interesting character. And we'll talk a little more about that later. For now, round 1 is about to begin. Both players charging towards one another. I'm going to start things off with a charging shield crush, but the Warden going to tippy-toe out of the way oh so gracefully and reset things back to neutral after getting a significant amount of punishment on me. He's using that shoulder bash, trying to get me caught in a bit of a vortex. That one is going to connect, charging his second one up to full, but things are going to turn out in my favor. He's gassed himself out of stamina. I'm going to turn around and use another charging shield crush. This time it's going to hit him, knock him to the ground. He's going to take a nice little heavy attack to the side. Whew, a lot's happening in a very short amount of time. What's going to make this fight truly interesting, though, is that both of us have stamina-draining attacks. Throwing out a heavy attack, but my opponent going for the parry and trying to landing a top-heavy. Some characters, when you get a light parry, you can just follow up immediately with a heavy attack, but unfortunately, he guessed wrong. I threw out that heavy, and he is going to get severely punished because of it. We're on pretty even footing in the health department. I'm charging up that heavy attack, trying to get some big damage out on him, but his zone attack is going to come out a little bit too fast for me to react to it and get that superior block. And now my second whiffed guard break is going to get me killed. That is a very unfortunate turn of events for round number 1. So, like I was saying before, though, we both have stamina-draining attacks. I have that shield bash, the Warden has the shoulder bash, and we're going to have to be very careful about how we manage that resource. It's not going to be as readily available as it is against, say, a Kensei or somebody that can't drain stamina so frequently. And now, instead of talking about the theory, let's get into the action. I'm throwing out a heavy attack. Looks like I tried to interrupt his shoulder bash, but he canceled it out before I was able to connect my hit. Doing some feinting. I could have fallen for that trick. I may have tried to throw out a heavy, and it looks like my whiffed guard break is going to get me punished again. I'm now out of stamina, which is a very dangerous place to be against the Warden. He's not going to go for the maximum punish. May have pressed the wrong button there. He used his own attack, tapped himself out of stamina. Now I have a great opportunity to come back, but nothing is going to come of it. It's very unfortunate now. I am on very close to my last segment of health. The Warden going to throw out a fully charged shoulder bash, and I will dodge out of the way, trying to send him into the spikes, but I am going to fail. Unfortunately, though, his dodge attempt is going to get him caught by a guard break and then sent into those spikes. He's a nice little wall ornament now. But that is probably going to get stinky pretty soon, so somebody needs to call the janitor, get that mess cleaned up. The score now is 1-1. Let's get this started. This portion of the map, there are plenty of environmental hazards, and it would appear that my opponent wants to get a little bit of quick revenge, trying to keep my back against the holes. So it'll be very unfortunate if I get knocked into that. I can't do too much feinting to try and throw him off, maybe bait out a parry, but so far I'm getting lucky. I'm throwing out a lot of attacks, but he's not successfully parrying in them. And look at that, my counter guard break attempt almost sent me to my demise. It's a good thing he didn't follow that up with a second guard break attempt, because it would have been over for me. The cool thing about this struggle, though, is that the environmental hazards are just adding a bit of mental pressure, because they're not, you know, we're not fighting on a tightrope right now. We're fighting on a bridge with some holes in it, so we're not changing the way we normally fight, but we have to be a little bit extra careful with every decision we make. Landing a shield bash, knocking him into the wall, but not going to do too much to capitalize on it. Being very careful about how I spend my stamina. Charging up that heavy attack, but the Warden going to turn tail and run away. He doesn't feel like falling into a hole that will instantly end his life, but you know what? When you're standing face to face with the Conqueror, your life is always at risk of being instantly put to an end. Charging up that heavy one more time, just going to fling it out. It is going to get parried. He's going to go for the top heavy again, but that does not work. He did not learn his lesson from the first time, so his head's going to come off a second time. So the score is now 2-1. If we can walk away with the next round victory, then we will walk away with the whole thing. But Warden, it's a very powerful character, one of the most powerful in the game. So we've really got to be about our business if we want to win this. A little bit of an unintentional rhyme there, but here we go. Round 4, it's kicking off. Let's see how we do it this time. Going for a standard shield bash light attack. That is the very basic combo for the Conqueror, and that's the very thing that got nerfed about the Conqueror. Charging up that heavy attack, but the Warden just going to come in and bop me on the head, tell me no, not this time. And there we go, getting that bop on the head once again. It's a very fast attack. It can be difficult to block that. With the Warden, you only really have to keep your eyes on the top guard and your left guard. Look at that, his fully charged shoulder bash going to hit me, and I'm going to get hit with a very powerful top heavy as a result. And now we're both out of stamina, staring one another down. The Warden's stamina going to come back first, and he successfully landed the shoulder bash mix-up into a guard break, but he didn't go for the maximum stamina punish. Again, it's either he doesn't know it or he's just pressing the wrong buttons. It happens to the best of us. I'm not going to pretend like I always make the right decisions, and you shouldn't either. But here we go. Speaking of wrong decisions, the Warden dodging out of the way, getting caught by a guard break, but I made a wrong decision there. I could have knocked him down to get the maximum stamina punish with the Conqueror, where you wind up that heavy attack like 1 or 2 times and then you let it fly. Deals a little bit more damage than a normal heavy attack, but you know what? The mistakes that the Warden made are not going to affect his ability to win the 4th round. So now the score is 2-2, so we got to start playing that epic music for the final round. Whoever wins this, it's looking like it's going to be determined by whichever player can get their maximum stamina punishes off. Like I said before, this is a battle of stamina draining. I can drain it with that shield bash, he can drain it with the shoulder bash, but we've got to capitalize on it properly. My opponent running down to the bottom of the stairs to avoid those holes, but like we saw in the second round, there are still environmental hazards on this map. I could knock him into the spikes again. Trading a little bit of damage there, the Warden using his zone attack, but my heavy attack is going to put me ahead on that trade, and I caught him, and I'm getting the maximum stamina punish that time, knocking him to the ground, getting that nice wind up, and I have put myself in a tremendously advantageous position here. But make no mistake, the Warden can still come back. If he gets a good vortex going, which is very possible, he can take me from my current health to 0 very easily. We've all seen it happen before. We've all made the wrong guess. Throwing out a raw heavy, it's gonna get parried, but that guard break was not guaranteed. The Conqueror's charged heavies have a deceptively long range. Now, he could go for a guard break, but the thing is, when the Conqueror is charging that heavy, they look for their opponent to go for a guard break so they can interrupt it. The Warden gonna throw out one more zone attack, and a little bit of prediction is going to give me the victory. When you block a Warden zone attack, that's over, people. It's a guaranteed guard break. So the final round is going to be in my favor. So overall, I think we put up a pretty good fight. The changes that were made to the Conqueror are very interesting and to a certain degree necessary. There shouldn't be a character that's safe from all forms of punishment. Is there a possibility the changes were a step too far in the wrong direction? Maybe. Only time will tell. What I know for sure is Conqueror for me has always felt like a character that juggles risk and reward very carefully. His attacks can't be traditionally feinted, so every swing is a huge risk. Getting tricked into parrying a feinted attack is a nightmare that ends with a good slap in the face and then a stab in the gut. But at the end of the day, taking big risks is the only way to get big rewards with this character. And when you do, the results speak for themselves. So there you go. As always, the name of the game is For Honor. The name of the channel is iBluairJgR Gaming for Comedy. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.